Hello friends, very good evening and welcome to the second session. I hope all of you have enjoyed yesterday's session in which we have discussed the importance of anthropology and why you should choose this as your optional for civil services examination. In today's session, we are going to discuss the syllabus of anthropology. Right, we will try to decode it, and through this session I will give you a brief overview, a glimpse of the world of anthropology. You will get to know what anthropology is and how much of that UPSC demands from you. Basically, our focus will be on understanding the syllabus that UPSC gave us, right? And through that we will know that what all lies inside this syllabus and how much effort you need to put in and how interesting the syllabus is. Okay, so broadly, as you all know that the anthropology optional has two papers, paper 1 and paper 2. In paper 1, we have general anthropology. General anthropology, or you can say here you will study anthropology as a whole. In paper 2, you have India specific anthropology, right? You have Indian anthropology. Both these papers are of 250 marks each, right? In paper 1, we have basically all 5 major specializations in anthropology. Some of you may be, they get confused that how come 5 major? We have only 4 as Frank Boas gave. So let me tell you how there are 5 major specializations in anthropology that are there in paper 1 general anthropology. First is socio-cultural anthropology. Right, in which you have your society, culture, various social institutions, right, all these things, the theories that explain these social institutions. Also, what are the various social processes and how change in society or culture take place. All these aspects we study there in socio-cultural anthropology. Second major specialization is physical or biological anthropology, in which our main emphasis is understanding human beings as an animal, right? So here the focus is on biology, on genetics, on race, on disease, on ecological adaptations, all these things. Next is linguistic anthropology, in which we tries to understand the language, its origin, the variations in languages, the types of communication, verbal and non-verbal communications, the relationship of language with culture, all these things are covered here. And fourth major specialization is your archaeological anthropology. In archaeological anthropology, we study the extinct cultures, right, by exploring the artifacts, identifying them, classifying them, interpreting them, right, what they tells us about human nature or human behavior of past cultures, how humans behave in past, right, how they lived, how they used the natural resources, what kind of belief system they have, if at all they have. All these we cover in general anthropology, and anyhow the application of all these four branches is applied anthropology, and that is one of the major specialization, because if any discipline, if it does not have any relevance, any application in real life, then it will lose relevance, right? So this is very, very important, applied anthropology. Even as an administrator, your understanding of these four major specializations will not suffice. Rather, you must know how you can use these theories, these practices, and this knowledge in solving the problems of the people, right? Everything has a role. Every specialization have a role in real life world. That I will tell you slowly, right, when it comes to it. The second paper, that is mainly Indian anthropology, in that you have two basically portions. You can take it three, right? The first one is that starts with unit 1. So 1.1 carries the archaeology of India. Archaeology of India. The other section in paper 2, Indian part, is Indian society and culture, various aspects of Indian society and culture, type of institutions, type of processes that take place, and the change aspect, whether Indian society is undergoing change or not. If at all it is undergoing change, then what are the factors responsible for it, right? All these factors we try to understand in this Indian society and culture part. And the last portion is tribal anthropology, right? In that we study the tribes, their diversity, both biological, socio-cultural, economic, as well as political. Their various institutions, right? Their adaptations in the unique habitat in which they live, okay, and how they are living it, what kind of change they are experiencing at this moment of globalization, industrialization, urbanization, how tribal people are being affected, right? What are their various problems, how we see them anthropologically, and what solution anthropology suggests for those tribal problems or the problems of Indian society, right? So basically it is about the role of anthropology in solving the real life problems of maybe STs, tribes as a whole, SCs, OBCs, minorities, or other weaker sections of society. So these are the two papers. Now this is not all. My discussion will not end here only. I will tell you that how UPSC asks questions from these two papers. So I am rubbing it up. I will tell you that how paper 1 and paper 2 is further subdivided into two sections each, and what kind of questions are being asked. After explaining this, I will take you through the entire syllabus of anthropology. I will try to explain various small keywords which are given in the syllabus so that you can understand it. You can learn it. It will be a kind of mini revision for you also, right? So just have some patience. So let us start with the subsections of paper 1. In the exam, you will have section A, and here there will be section B. Okay. In section A, you write, if you have your syllabus in front of you, then in section A, UPSC asks you from basics of anthropology. The basics are unit 1 of paper 1, right? Basically 1.1 to 1.3 is the basics. Okay. You can also include in the basic itself the socio-cultural theories or thoughts and research methods. These basics are the very foundation of socio-cultural anthropology or anthropology as a whole. Then you have socio-cultural anthropology. In socio-cultural anthropology, you study society, culture, social institutions, various aspects of culture and civilization, right? Various processes of change. Other than that, social institutions like marriage, family, economic organization, political organization, religion, all this is covered under this socio-cultural anthropology, where the emphasis of study is the study of socio-cultural aspect of mankind. Then in that we are asked the linguistic part also, languages, linguistic anthropology. So basically, mainly UPSC asks in section A, that is of 125 marks from these areas. But let me tell you, there is no foundation on UPSC. Mainly they keep section A like this, and section B is kept for physical anthropology. Yes, one more thing here, they can ask this general archaeology here, general archaeology, that means these, and sometimes they mix general archaeology with physical also. So there is no fixed route, but main division is physical anthropology in section B, and section A is dedicated for your socio-cultural anthropology, right? If you take archaeology in British tradition, the archaeology is part of socio-cultural anthropology itself, okay, and linguistic also to an extent. So this is socio-cultural and this is physical anthropology, 125 marks each. But there is no watertight division that they will not ask from this section in section B. They can ask, and they often ask also, right? And then similarly, paper 2 is relatively safe in that respect, in that there is these two sections, A and B. In section A, they ask Indian archaeology, and Indian society. Right? And in section B, it is dedicated for tribes. Undoubtedly, there are some more areas such as scheduled castes, OBCs and all that can be asked, and they are often asked also. So this is the broad outline of the paper. Now let's go a little deeper into our understanding of the syllabus of anthropology, right? So see, if you look at the syllabus of anthropology, you will not find it much comfortable, right? because although it is highly elaborate, whatever UPSC asks from anthropology, they have clearly written it down in syllabus, right? But for a beginner, the syllabus is very haphazard. They cannot make meaning out of it. If you start studying anthropology from unit 1, right, and if you think that you will complete from unit 1 to unit 12 in paper 1, right? So anthropology syllabus, basically paper 1 have 12 units with many subdivisions, and in paper 2 there are 9 units. Yes, there are subdivisions here too. Okay, so this is the units, but if you start studying from unit 1, 1.1 in paper 1, and if you want to go up to 12, then you will find that somewhere there is socio-cultural, then there is physical, then there is socio-cultural, then there is physical, right? So it will confuse a new aspirant, and it is very difficult to understand for the beginners, and even who have completed anthropology, they cannot make a meaning out of it, that how they can better understand anthropology, how various topics can be linked together, how a better meaning can be derived from the syllabus. So it is very difficult for them. So that is why I have a strategy, I have an approach with which you can better classify your syllabus. You can see a better perspective when you look through this, right? I hope all of you have the syllabus in your hand, right? You can download it from the UPSC website, or you can just Google it, you will find it. You just have the syllabus in your hand so that you can better understand this session. So first, let me tell you our approach, how we are going to understand the syllabus, and then I will take the topics one by one, right? So again, paper 1 and 2, right? So in paper 1, we have anthropology, general anthropology, right? So in paper 1, unit 1.1, 1.2 and 1.3, this is general introduction of anthropology, right? 1.1, and 1.3. These 3 units, right, chapters are the introduction of anthropology. In unit 1.1, we have meaning, scope and development of anthropology. Basically what anthropology is, what is its scope and how it developed. So let me give you a brief idea that anthropology is systematic study of mankind over time and space, हर जगह पे and हर time में study है humans की. Okay, its scope is very wide, universal, because it includes everything which is related to humankind, which is related to humans, that means us. So its scope is universal. It applies to primitive societies as well as the modern societies. It is a subject of study as well as it is a profession of application, right? Then development की अगर हम बात करें, so basically anthropology is as old as the humanity itself, because from the very first day we humans are curious about ourselves, our origins, from where we came, why we behave like this, right? Why so many institutions, why religion, right? We are curious about ourselves. So that is the introduction. The very first portion, 1.1, is meaning, scope and development of anthropology. Okay, so in development, although what I just told you that it is the oldest discipline, but in practical sense that when it became a discipline of study in the universities, though it was the youngest discipline, right? Although it is the oldest one, you can say informally, but formally it was very new, right? It was in late 19th century, it developed as a discipline. Okay, then the second unit is relationship of anthropology with other disciplines like social sciences, behavioral sciences and all. See, anthropology has overlapping with everything. Why? Because anthropology studies human, right? And any other discipline, whether sciences or natural sciences, they revolve around us. So naturally anthropology have overlapping with them. Whether it is behavioral sciences, they study human behavior, but their focus is on individual behavior. Anthropology has the focus on the group behavior, on the entire society, on the entire culture, on the entire tribe, right? So that is the difference and similarity in behavioral science and all. So similarly we can look at other disciplines also. The 1.3 that I just gave you here, it is about the main branches of anthropology, right? Major specializations of anthropology that I just told you that there are 4 specializations as per Frank Boas, but there is 5th one, that is the application of all these 4, right? But UPSC asks you these 4 and UPSC asks the 5th one again and again, maybe in the first unit or in other units, because relevance or the application of any theory, any knowledge is very, very important. So here there are 4 major specializations that I have just enumerated 5 minutes ago: socio-cultural anthropology, physical anthropology, linguistic anthropology and archaeological anthropology. So this is the introduction, and if you want to study anthropology properly, if you want to get a glimpse over it, so the first 3 chapters are very, very essential. These are very, very essential, and you can follow first you study this, then you study 1.3 and then 1.2, because then you can make better meaning out of it. We will follow the strategy in the same way, although let me tell you here itself that if you study anthropology introduction today in our class and you again read the same text, the same notes that I provide you, after completion of your syllabus, you will find much better clarity after completion, because then your knowledge will be much more systematized, right? It will be much more ordered. Various interlinks you can understand, various nuances of anthropology you can understand, right? But still, without the introduction, you cannot have better idea about what lies inside. So that is the first thing that you have to carry, you have to study. The second thing, just after that, if you want to study it properly and if you want to understand the syllabus of anthropology properly, so the second thing that you can do is study the socio-cultural anthropology. Socio-cultural anthropology. This socio-cultural anthropology, it is there in unit 2.1, right? 2.2, 2.3, 3, 4, 5, right? And even 7. Let me tell you about all these, that what is there in it. So in 2.1, there is, the unit is nature of culture, that what culture is, what is its nature, what are the various characteristics of culture and how culture and civilization differs. Right? What is ethnocentrism and what is cultural relativism? So these are few terms in it. So let me tell you culture. Sometime you may listen that he is not cultured, he is uncivilized, right? But in anthropology we have much broader meaning of culture, because culture encompasses everything, right? Whether it is morals, values, laws, customs, or any other habit or capability which is acquired by us, we humans, as a member of society. Right? This is a very broad definition given by E.B. Tyler, very famous anthropologist, British anthropologist, right? So basically culture is acquired by us while we live in a society, right? Then how culture differs from civilization? See, in a simplest way, culture, you can think that it is intangible, you cannot touch it, because customs, laws, right, or taboos, or anything, any kind of these folklores, you cannot touch them. Civilization is your this board, this podium, this laptop, everything. This is your part of civilization that you can touch. Both are products of us, humans, right? But the difference is in their tangible and intangible nature. Okay, then ethnocentrism and cultural relativism. Ethnocentrism is basically judging others from your own cultural biases, and cultural relativism is just opposite to it, right? That understanding others from their own perspective without judging from our own biases or value loads, right? So this is topic 2.1. Then in 2.2 we have nature of society. Nature of society, that what society is. So society is a web of interrelationships or relationships, yes, right, in which we humans are woven together through various bonds of kinship, right, marriage or descent, various kinds of bonds are there in a society. Then how society and culture differs from each other, right? How society and culture differs from each other, that is there, that whether culture is a product of society or society is a product of culture. That interrelationship, that kind of egg chicken relationship we will study. That is a very interesting topic. There are multiple views of anthropologists over this, the relationship of society and culture. Then we study various social institutions. Marriage is a social institution, right? Family is a social institution. Religion is a social institution. All these we are studying in this. Then social groups, right? Whether it is your college groups, whether it is family is a social group. Okay, you can find nowadays WhatsApp groups. All these are social groups, right? In which we humans have, we are arranged in social relationships, right, through social institutions. So social groups we will study. Then social stratification. Society, every society is stratified, right? Our society, North Indian society, or you can say entire Indian society is stratified in caste, right? There are higher castes, there are lower castes. So we have caste based stratification. Somewhere we have estate based stratification. You might have studied that in human history also, right? That French Revolution, estates, अगर आपने sociology में नहीं पढ़ा, society में नहीं पढ़ा तो, right? We can have race based, that right, or the class system. So there can be various bases of social stratification that we study here, right? What are various theories that tries to help us better understand the basis of social stratification that we have to study here. Then 2.3 is marriage, right? What is marriage? How you can define marriage? See, marriage is a product of our culture, right? And culture, we know that it varies from one place to other place. So can we have a universal definition of marriage? See, the cultural practices of one culture differs from the other. So if there is so much diversity in this world, even in India itself, so can we have a universal definition of marriage? There is a debate here, right, by 2-3 scholars that we have to understand. Then whether marriage is a universal phenomena or it is not found in some societies. There is a debate on this also, right? We know that there are some institutions like live-in relationships, right? And there are some other, bizarre cultural traditions in many societies that we have to understand that marriage, that we understand that one husband, one wife is not a universal phenomena, right? There can be other forms, although there are few functionalists who argue that this monogamous marriage is a universal phenomena. So we'll analyze on that aspect that what marriage is and whether it is universal or not. Then there are various laws of marriage. Laws of marriage that says that endogamy, exogamy, we know all these things already. Endogamy, caste endogamy. We have caste endogamy in India, that if someone will marry outside the caste, then there will be khap panchayat and there will be trouble for both, right? There can be killings, there can be any other problem that we normally witness, right? Although these things are reducing now, that is a good trend, but endogamy is there, and endogamy is the one of the basic feature of caste also. So that is another area although, but endogamy, that is a marriage law. Second is exogamy. So in exogamy you can say that there is, we cannot marry within the group. So Gotra exogamy you can see in northern India, right, that one cannot marry in the same Gotra, that is exogamy. Then there is another thing that is hypergamy, right? Hypergamy means women will marry to the person with higher varna or higher status. And there is hypogamy. Hypogamy means marriage of women with the person of lower varna or lower status. Then there is incest taboo. Incest taboo means that the close relatives should not marry, right? Like brother sister or father daughter or mother son. So incest is a taboo in all societies, although there is a question mark on this also, there is a debate on this also, that we will see that what is taboo, incest taboo, what are the reasons behind it, what are the various theories that tries to explain that incest taboo, and whether it is a universal phenomena or not. That is another question that we have to see. Then types of marriages. See, what marriage you see, that one man and one woman is marrying, that is the simplest form of marriage, that is monogamy. There is polygamy. In polygamy, one individual marry many, right? That can be polygyny or polyandry. In polygyny, one husband marries multiple wives at the same time. And in polyandry, one woman marries multiple males at one point of time, right? Or you can say that one woman carry multiple husband or one man carry multiple wives, that is polyandry and polygyny. Then there is group marriage, that a group of male marry to a group of female, right? These are found in different societies. There is a shortage of time that I have to give you the glimpse of entire syllabus, otherwise I could have explained everything in detail also. Okay, then what are the functions of marriage? You know that how our society is sustaining itself. That is through basically procreation, right, or reproduction. So that is the most fundamental function of marriage. Then there is economic function, there is social function. Economic function, you can understand that after marriage there is division of work between the husband and wife, right, and that is economics, division of work. Then we often say, right, अगर आपने कभी शादी अटेंड की है या शादी जब होती है देखी है, आप सभी ने देखी होगी, बेसिकली शादी एक इंडिविजुअल की, एक मेल की एक फीमेल से नहीं होती है. The marriage is between two families, right, and their relatives. So the marriage is between two families. So that makes a social network. That is another function, that it widens your kinship network. Then there are many marriage regulations that we have to study. That sometimes we have to, regulations means preferential regulations, prescriptive and proscriptive. Preference दिया जाता है कि one should marry him or her. So cousin marriage that we see in South India and in Muslim community, that cousin marriage is practiced. So that is a preferential type of marriage. The second type of preferential marriage or preferential regulation through which some type of marriages take place is levirate and sororate. Right? Levirate is basically an obligation to marry the widow of the brother, right? And sororate is basically the marriage of the husband of the deceased sister. These are preferential regulations. Then there are prescriptions that we have already covered, that exogamy and endogamy. Then there is proscription, मना किया हुआ है, that one should not do this. That is incest, taboo, right? Incest is proscribed, it should not be done, right? And then we have to understand the marriage payments. In marriage payments we have to cover the bride wealth and dowry, right? See, normally what we see is dowry is a very prevalent phenomena in Indian society. But if you see globally and in tribals and in most of the cultures, then bride wealth is found in approximately 44% societies. And dowry is not that prevalent, it is approximately 9-10% of the total, right? So that was 2.3. After that there is 2.4, in which we have family, right? And in family we try to understand what is family, whether you can define it or not properly, or there are multiple definitions or not. Is it a universal phenomena or no, family is not a universal phenomena? That is a debate. If at all it is universal, then what type of family is universal? That is another thing that we have to understand, right? So these three things that you have to understand. Then what is the difference between family, household and domestic group? That you have to understand. See, family, we have either blood ties, right, or a final ties. A final ties means marriage, or legal ties, that means adoption. So family may, we have three these key things. One is blood ties, that one child is born to a couple, so the child is related by blood. The husband and wife are related through a final ties or marriage, and if they have adopted a child, then that is the legal aspect. So these are the three defining elements of family. On the other hand, household is basically the people live in a common home, house, you can say, right, and they may not be related to each other. Many people, you are staying in Old Rajendra Nagar or anywhere for preparation, so you share your accommodation with others. So you live in a household. You are not a family. Your family is living somewhere else, right? So that is household. Then what are the functions of family? So functions of family are almost similar to that of marriage. that is reproductive function, child care, right? Or you can say care of elderly also, economic functions, the division of work, all these things we cover in this. Then you know that there are many types of families, on the basis of its structure, blood relation, marriage, residence and succession, that we have to cover. That is the easiest portion, right? That is not at all difficult. Now after that, the key is whether the family structure or its functions are same or not. You know that there is a trend due to urbanization and industrialization that nuclearization is increasing. Although many of you are aware of the 2011 census that joint families are increasing, not nuclear family. So that trend I will discuss in the class. Okay, and another thing, what is the impact of feminist movement on the structure and the functions of family? Basically, women are asserting their rights, right? And that is a very important and good thing that we have seen. But because of that, there are many changes in the family structure and its functions. Now, husband shares work. Husband equally participate in household chores, right? And the nuclearization is increasing because of that. That is the change that we are observing, so that we are going to cover in the family. Next thing is 2.5, that is kinship, right? Kinship is basically the relationship. आपको मैं simplest words में let me explain that kinship is the relationship which is acquired either by birth or by marriage, right? So who are your kins? You can just think over it by these two things. We have to understand various types of descent. Descent means how one is related to the ancestors, right? So there are many types of descent that we have to study. Then we have to study the kinship terminology, how various kins are termed, basically how one call his father, how one call his or her mother, right? So in this way, how one call what term is being used for that brother-in-law and sister-in-law. So these terms basically reflect the socio-cultural behavior of the individual also. So these terms are not just terms, but by understanding these terms, right? आपने सुना होगा कि सोनू के पापा या फिर in this way, women in India do not address their husband in northern India especially. Nowadays the trend is changing, not by their name but by the name of their sons or daughters, right? So that is kind of kinship terminology, and how the cultural behavior is related to it, that we try to understand here. We try to understand various theories that tries to explain that descent or basically kinship, right? That kinship is explained through descent or through alliance. Descent means I am talking about birth. So there are two theories, descent theories and alliance theory, that we have to cover. Then economic organization, this third unit, right? 2.5 is there, third unit. In third unit there is economic organization. See, we all know that tribal economic organization is simple, right? And because simple, that everything is performed at the family level, right? They are self-sufficient. According to Marshall Sahalin, who recently died, right? He says that the simple societies are really affluent societies. Why? Because their needs are limited and they have sufficient resources to fulfill those wants that they have. Okay, so these simple societies, whether you can understand these simple societies by using the principles and methods of modern economics that you use in your own society, that is a question here. So there is two aspects, two theories that tries to explain the simple societies. One is the formalist approach and the other is substantivist approach. The terms that you will find in this. So, substantivists say that simple societies, their economic system is not diffracted. They don't have specializations. Everything is diffused, right? Basically their economics is embedded in their society and their culture. One example I can give you here, that economics says that we must maximize. We may try to maximize our profit. Profit maximization is the basic principle. And for maximizing this profit, one should be rational, right? We should take rational decisions. But Begas, Maler Paharias and many shifting cultivators of central India, they do not apply that rationalism. They do not plow their land. If they plow the land, naturally the productivity of the land will increase. They will get more profit, right? But they do not plow it. So if they do not plow their land, that means they are not adopting the profit maximization or rationalism. Okay, so can you apply the modern economics on them? If you try to understand their society, their economic organization, how they produce things, right? So that is a debate that we will try to cover, right? That is a simple and very important aspect. Then how the production, see we know that economy revolves around production, distribution and consumption, these three aspects. So we try to understand these three aspects of the simple societies, how they produce, what kind of production system is there, whether they have horticulture or they are hunter-gatherers, they are pastoralists or what, right? And how they distribute that. Do they have same market mechanism that we have, or no, they distribute through barter, or they distribute by just in their kin group that they have a hunt and let's share with them because tomorrow I may need it. So what kind of distribution system is there, right? And how they consume it, that thing that we will see in economic organization. Then we will see that how various agents of change, globalization, industrialization, urbanization is bringing change in the economic organization of the simple societies. Okay, whether it is agriculture, horticulture, pastoralism or etc. or any such things, right? Similarly, we have fourth unit, which is political organization and social control. We see that we have our laws, constitution, right? We have lawyers, we have police, we have courts that enforce the laws, that maintains order. So how order is maintained in simple societies? That we try to understand in political organization. How simple societies, political organization is different from the political organizations of the modern society. That is our main emphasis here, right? And what is the basically nature of law and justice? See, order is there in all societies. There are laws. Some are customary laws and some are constitutional laws, right? We have constitutional laws, they have customary laws, they have their own tradition, right? And you might have seen that some days ago there was a news also that one woman, because of some marriage dispute or so, she has to carry a teenager on her shoulders for approximately 3-4 kilometers. That news was widely shared across the social media and all, and many people were asking that what we should do, because they have their own traditions. Whether we basically punish those people or not. So what should be our, how you should see this thing that we are going to discuss, right? That is one thing. Next thing in fifth unit is religion. See, we don't study religion as religion that that religion का बहुत सारी चीजें and all aspects. No. Basically, we try to understand the origin of religion, its significance in the society. What is the significance of religion in the society? Right? How religion differs from magic and science. That differentiation we will see. Right? Various types of religion like monotheism, polytheism, what is sacred, what is profane. Right? Basically, आप कहीं जाओगे, so religious place पे you will see that everything there, even touching the outer wall of temple, you will feel blessed. Why? Or church or any other religious institution. Why? Basically, we consider that entire building as sacred. So whatever associated with God, with religion is sacred. And other mundane things, they are secular, or you can say profane. We try to understand myths and rituals, right? How they are associated, right? How myths are important for simple societies. There are myths in our society too. There are rituals in our society too. Marriage rituals, birth rituals, death rituals. All these rituals you encounter in your lifetime also. And you may not have applied your mind on that, but here, once you have studied anthropology, you will start applying your mind on it, right? You will start deriving meaning of those rituals, right? You will apply various theoretical understanding of various scholars also on that. We will understand various religious practices or kind of religions in simple societies, right? आप सब लोगों ने देखा होगा, in Hindu religion there is that soul worship, पितृ को जो खाना खिलाया जाता है, right? So that is animism. That animistic practice is also found in Hinduism as well, right? There are many other things like totemism, naturism, fetishism, etc. that we are going to discuss here. Various types of religious functionaries we will discuss here. Okay, so and the 7th unit here that I have written, it is basically linguistic anthropology, but I have combined it here for our ease of understanding. See, in this sequence that I am explaining the syllabus, if you read it through this sequence, it will be relatively easy for you to understand and grasp everything in anthropology. See, through this way, you will find that everything is organically linked, right? If you understand first, you can better understand second. If you can understand second, you can better understand third. That is the way I have devised this strategy. In 7th, you will study culture, language and communication, right? How the language that we speak, the way we communicate, at some point in time, it might have originated. कैसे originate हुआ? That origin of language we will try to understand, right? Whether it is the necessity of, you can say group hunting, because group hunting requires cooperation of so many people, and one has to communicate that the elephant is running in this way, please catch, right? Or fall in, fall back, in this way you have to communicate. So that may be one theory that explains that origin of language. Then variations in language we try to understand. We try to understand the social context of language use. All these things we try to understand in the second major subsection. In this way I have divided the entire syllabus into 7 sections, and let me come to the third portion. Third portion is anthropological theories. Anthropological theories and research methods. See, once you have gone through this socio-cultural anthropology, you will find many anthropologists and their works that you have to understand, right? Ideally, in the very beginning, you must understand this third topic, because I consider this as the basics of anthropology. In with this one only, right? The reason I have kept it here, that was very strategic, because if you begin with it, you will get bored, right? Some people will get bored, because especially those who are from science background, that is why I have kept it here. It will be very interesting after you cover the second section that I have just mentioned. In this section, we have unit 6 and we have unit 8. We have unit 6 and 8 of your paper 1, and some units I have covered of paper 2 with this theories, because once you study theories, so there are some topics from paper 2 that make better sense with this section 3 that I have just told you. So what are those parts? So in paper 2, unit 3.3, right, 3.4, 7.2 and 8.1. These units from paper 2, if you study with theories, especially diffusionism, then I'm coming on this, so that will make better sense. Okay? So let me tell you, in anthropological theories, what are the various theories, one by one in a very simple and lucid manner. So the first theory is classical evolutionism. Evolutionism means society and culture, they evolve from the simple to the complex one in a unilinear fashion, right? And why it is happening? Because of the psychic unity, that we humans apply similar reasoning, right? We have psychic unity if we are there in similar ecosystem, or you can say ecohabitat, or similar environment. See, if we have similar environment, then our mental reasoning, right, our psychic processes will be similar, and as a result of it, there is evolution from simple to complex societies. There are many criticisms to it that we will cover later. The second theory is historical particularism. It was not a theory in strict sense, because neither the thinker who gave this theory, whose name is associated with theory, he ever said that I am giving any theory or any generalization, right? Yes, he was Frank Boas, and the name to this theory, historical particularism, was given by Marvin Harris. Okay, so it says that every culture is a product of its own history, and it is unique, and it must be understood in its own way, right? Its uniqueness should not be judged from the perspective of others. That was the historical particularism. The third thing is diffusionism. Diffusionism says that various cultural traits, right? Various cultural traits, they have emerged. Cultural traits have emerged at one place or at some places, and they diffused in the way, like आपने यहाँ पे perfume छिड़क दिया, so the perfume will diffuse. In the same way, the cultural traits, they emerged at one place, they originated at one place, and they traveled across the world, right, either through the travelers or wars, etc. That is diffusionism, simple. Third thing is, fourth is functionalism. So functionalism basically try to seek a function of every cultural trait. Religion hai, right, then religion have a function, right? Suppose आपका एग्जाम है, right, and then you worship, हे भगवान मुझे आज पास करवा देना, right? So what is the reason behind it? The religion here is utilitarian, right? It has a function. It gives you hope. It gives you confidence. It reduces your anxiety. So functionalist says that every aspect of culture has utility, function, and they see entire society as an integrated whole. That social aspect is embedded in the religious aspect. The religious aspect is embedded in the economic aspect, and so on and so forth. That is functionalism. Then another theory is structuralism. Structuralism, आप ऐसे समझ सकते हैं that this room is made up of bricks, cement and all. right? And you can pile up some bricks inside. Which thing we will have a structure? This room has a structure because the component parts are arranged in a proper way. So what is a structure? The arrangement of component parts in a proper way is a structure. Similarly, society has a structure. So structuralist tries to explain that social structure, right? We will come to it when we will explain it. Then the next theory is culture personality school. It says that personality of an individual is dependent on the culture because the culture is encultured into an individual, right? जब हम बड़े होते हैं तो हम कल्चर से बहुत सारी चीजें गेन करते हैं. That is how we can say that culture shapes personality and personality also shapes culture. Both have two-way relationship with each other. That is this theory. Next theory is neo-evolutionism. Basically neo-evolutionism क्या कहता है? That classical evolutionism को थोड़ा सा addition देता है, some facts it provide. Next is cultural materialism. Cultural materialism says that the material aspects of the culture determine the social aspects and the religious aspects or the belief aspects. Let me give you an example, you can better make sense out of it. Basically, we believe that cow is sacred. This example, just pay a little heed. We know that cow is sacred. Why cow is sacred? This explanation was given by Marvin Harris. He says, cow is sacred because it is useful even if it does not give milk, right? Because it can be used in the field, right, as the labor, or it can be used. Its dung can be used as a fertilizer. So it is more useful alive than dead. That is why this material aspect, this economic aspect, right, it shapes our belief that it is sacred. And there is another example that once there is drought. So in the drought year, the calves are allowed to die. The same sacred cow, its calves are allowed to die, right, of starvation. Why? Because the material conditions, the economic conditions changed, and that change in economic conditions have again shaped the belief, right? So this is that theory, that is very interesting theory. Theories are the most important and most interesting aspect. Next theory is symbolic theory, right? That every culture have a set of symbols, right? And these symbols, through their interpretation, we can better understand any culture, any society, right? There are many scholars to it that we will discuss in detail later on. Then there are cognitive theories, right? That they say that if you want to understand a culture, then you must understand from the eyes of its inhabitants, right? The way they perceive their culture, the methodologies that they use in understanding the cultural processes, you try to understand from that level, right? You go into their mind and try to understand that culture. That is cognitive theories, okay? And the final theory is postmodernism, right? Postmodernism basically reject all sciences, that science is hierarchical, right? Science create power divisions in the world, so we must reject science. That is this theory. Now, these theories are not only important in themselves, but they are important here also. If you have to write better answers in socio-cultural anthropology, you have to quote these theories. You have to apply your knowledge of theories or the scholars or their works, right, or their punchlines. You can use there to fetch better marks. Then we have some research methods, right? These research methods basically are used in research in sociocultural anthropology. Okay, so various ways of data collection, all these things we are going to study in research methods, right? We will try to understand what is the difference between method, methodology and technique. That is that thing. Okay, and what I have given there of paper 2, 3.3, 3.4. So let me tell you what it was. So in 3.3 there is sacred complex and nature man spirit complex. Both these concepts are given by famous Indian anthropologist Dr. L.P. Vidyarthi. He says that there is a sacred complex, right, in which the civilizational elements are integrated, basically they interact. So we can derive that from diffusionism, right? वो जो अप्रोच थी वो कहीं ना कहीं हम डिफ्यूजनिज्म और एक और अप्रोच है दैट इज द सिविलाइजेशनल स्कूल, वो उन दोनों को मिला के हम देख सकते हैं, राइट? देयर इज अ कॉन्सेप्ट कॉल्ड एक्लचरेशन दैट यू विल अंडरस्टैंड slowly. So that is that in 3.3. In 3.4 there is impact of Buddhism, Jainism, Islam, Christianity on Indian society, right? So that is the process of diffusionism, that how religious traits of other religions are incorporated in Indian society. That is that 3.4. Okay, so that is the questions are direct, that discuss the impact of Buddhism, discuss the impact of Jainism on Indian society. You will find such kind of questions in 15 or 20 markers, right? So you have already studied these things in your GS, so you won't find much difficulty in it. Then we have 7.2 and 8.1. In 7.2 you have various processes of change in tribal societies, right? The impact of democratic institutions like Panchayati Raj on their society, various schemes. What impact these schemes, Panchayati Raj institutions are bringing in tribal society? So the change aspect that you try to understand. So how the modern traditions, the civilized society is diffusing into the simple societies, right? How their way of life is changing because of the interaction with the mainstream society, the civilized world, the so-called civilized world. We are not denying that the tribals are not civilized, they are too civilized, right? But the way we see, right, in the stereotypical sense. 8.1 is about impact of Hinduism, Jainism and all these religions on tribal society. The 3.4 was on Indian society. Here we study on tribal society. So these are some topics that we will study together, and if you study together you will make out better sense of it. Then after that you can study physical anthropology, and we will take physical anthropology, biological anthropology. Physical anthropology, then evolution and paleoanthropology. Okay, physical anthropology, evolution and paleoanthropology. Paleoanthropology means study of fossils. So in this section we have some portion of paper 2 as well, right? I will tell you which one. So in this we have 1.7 of paper 1, then we have unit 9, 10, 11, 12, then we have 1.4 in evolution and paleoanthropology of paper 1 only, and we have 1.5, 1.6 and some portion of paper 2, that is 1.2, in which you will find Narmada man, Ramapithecus, Sivapithecus. So this is one broader section of your physical anthropology, evolution and paleoanthropology. Let me tell you in brief that what it contains. So in first of this 1.7 basically is about cell. What is cell? DNA, proteins, gene, mutation, chromosome, cell divisions, right? Basically what you have to study here in 1.7 that you have already covered in your GS, and that does not require much specialization here. That is just the basics of cell. What is DNA? What is chromosome? What is gene? What is genome? All these things you have to study in GS also. So that is not a big deal for you. Then after that you have 9th unit. In 9th unit you have genetics, and the genetics that you have to study, whether it is pedigree analysis, okay, through pedigree analysis you can study the inheritance of disease, okay, and that is very simple. You have already covered that in 10th class. You have twin study. In twin study we try to understand the relative influence of nature and environment. Basically when we grow up, whether nature, that means our genetic constitution that we have inherited from our parents, is more important, or the environment in which we live, kind of food we have taken, right, kind of external physical environment in which we live, whether it is the desert, cold climate or mountains. So which is having more impact, that we try to understand in twin study, right? Similarly there are other methods of genetics like karyotyping or karyoanalysis. In karyotyping basically we try to understand the chromosome and their nature. At the same time we try to identify what kind of chromosomal aberrations or diseases are there. You might have seen that, might have already seen some of the kids with Down syndrome, right, in and around you. That is very common syndrome, and you can see that, right, in and around you. So what is the reason behind it, that we try to understand here. Then DNA technologies we study. See, nowadays RT-PCR, right, this polymerase chain reaction, reverse transcriptase polymerase chain reaction, you already have studied in GS because of this great pandemic which have disrupted everything, even including your preparation. So in that you have already studied all these things, various DNA technologies, what kind of treatment options are available, that you have studied, right? So that we study here. Then Mendelian genetics we study, that who was Mendel, how many laws he gave, right? What is law of segregation, dominance and independent assortment. These are very simple laws, only two-liners. You have to just think, understand only once, right? We have to understand the diseases also, single factor diseases, multifactorial diseases, all. Then genetic aberrations and lethal genes. The lethal genes are those genes which basically kills an individual or the possessor, right? Whosoever possess the lethal genes, that will not survive, right? If it is sublethal, for some time he or she may survive, but after that he or she will die. Other thing is, we try to understand human diversity in 9.3, right? The genetic polymorphism, Mendelian population, right? We try to understand the frequency of genes in various populations. What are the various factors that influence those frequencies? So basically, you know that in Indian population, in North Indian population, especially in Bihar and this region, B blood group is more prevalent, right? Why B blood group is more prevalent in this region, and why A blood group is found mainly in Europe, why O blood group is found in American Indians. So these regions, that how the genetic frequencies of various traits are found in different populations. What are the factors that affect that we try to understand, right? You know that if one person travels from one place to the other and he or she may possess a gene, right, And if that gene travel to the other location, so through migration, there may be change in the gene pool. So in that way, that is a very simple thing. We'll understand all these things. The impact of natural selection, right? Natural selection simply, you can apply on your own life now. See, you take that nature is UPSC, okay? And in natural selection, nature selects the best variation, which is most fit in a particular situation, in a particular environment. In the same way, the variation which is the most fit for civil services will be selected, right? So be a hard-working person, be a consistent person, right? You will qualify this. There is no big deal in this. After that, we'll study the mating types, consanguineous mating, non-consanguineous mating and their impact. See, non-consanguineous means marriage in the blood, sanguine means blood, and consanguineous mating means marriage within the blood relatives. So it is between brother, sister, or father and daughter, and mother and son. So naturally it will have some impact, and what impact it will have, that we try to understand. In 9.4 we see some chromosomal aberrations, both structural and numerical. So structural aberration means the structure of chromosome that you see like this, right? It has some defects, right? इसके structure में कोई defect आ गया, and then there are numerical, that means either one chromosome or one pair is missing or one is added. So these aberrations and what are the various diseases caused by it, genetic diseases, that we try to understand. That is very simple, because in that they will directly ask, write a short note on Klinefelter syndrome or Turner syndrome or Down syndrome. So you have to write what it is, what are the causes, what are the characteristic features of it, and what are the management options available. These are the 4 things that you have to write. Next unit is 9.5. In 9.5, you will see that you have race, racism, right? So what is race and what is racism? What are the criteria to identify a particular race? Whether it is just morphological or just by looking at the appearance, okay, the color, hair type, eye color or eye type, or nose, okay, or you can say stature, nose width. All these things you can identify a race. Or there are other factors also, like the blood group, right, or other genetic markers that can be useful for identifying. So these are basically some criteria to identify race. But nowadays, race as a concept has been rejected, because race is basically exploitative system, right, in which one race is considered superior and the other race is considered inferior. So race as a concept has been rejected by UNESCO, and some of the prominent anthropologists of the time, like Montagu, they have rejected, right? As a biological concept, it has been rejected, right? In sociocultural context, it is used, but a more better term is ethnicity now, right? Ethnic group is used nowadays in place of race, right? And racism is basically the feeling of superiority in one race because of variety of reasons. That can be fair color, that can be the purity of blood, like the Jews were, executed by Hitler and his army on the basis of that we are pure Aryan race and Jews are polluting us, so we will exterminate them. So that was the feeling of superiority of blood, right? Similarly, cultural superiority and all, these are the basis. But nowadays, race as a concept is invalid, right? In some cases, it is being used, especially in forensic anthropology. Yes, it is being used to identify the dead bodies or the victims and all. But otherwise, it is no longer used, right? Ethnic groups is used in place of it. But still, for historical importance, we study race and racism to understand anthropology, right? Then there are many genetic markers that distinguishes one population from the other, that we study, right? How the population stock of northern India differs from the southern India, or one tribe differ from the other tribe, one region differ from the other region. That we try to understand through the genetic markers, that can be blood group, right? ABO blood group, or RH system, or it can be some blood enzymes or some other characteristics. Then we try to understand the human adaptations. I have discussed something about human adaptations yesterday also, right? See, we humans have occupied almost every corner of earth. We live in mountain tops, we live in the cold Arctic region, we live in the hottest deserts, right? So, and we are adapted, and in that adaptation our biology played a role. At the same time our culture also played a role, right? The kind of clothing that you see, the kind of food one consumes in a particular habitat differs from the other. Type of body shape differs in all these regions. So we are, the adaptations are biological, genetic, as well as cultural. That we'll see in detail later on. Okay, then disease and health. We try to understand what is disease, what is health, what is illness. Do you know that there is a difference between disease and illness also, right? Disease is basically which is caused by some by infectious agent, or it can be a genetic disease. But illness is the experience of it, right? If you are not experiencing it, then you are not ill, but you may be carrying a disease. Someone may be a diabetic, but he or she may not know that she is diabetic. So she is not ill, but she is carrying a disease, right? So these are two different things that you have to understand that, right? So that we will see later. And then we try to understand human growth and development, right? Various stages of human growth and development. What is aging and senescence? That is a very easy topic that we'll do. What are the various factors that influence human growth and development? Whether it is the genes that influence human growth, or it is the environment which influence the growth, that we will try to make out. What is the impact of the biochemical or hormonal factors in growth and development, right? You might see some people, they cannot grow tall because of some hormonal deficiencies, and you might find that this guy have this problem, right? So which factor is responsible for growth, whether it is gene or the environment or the biochemical hormonal factors, that we will study in growth and development. We will try to understand the difference between aging and senescence, right? You age every year, right? आप 25 के थे, next year आप 26 के हो जाएंगे. So it is aging basically. You are growing older. But what is senescence? Senescence, which is in the 10th unit, senescence is those deleterious changes. Those deleterious changes which basically reduces your functional capacity, which occur in post reproductive life. Reproductive life के बाद में जो आते हैं, and which basically subsequently lead to death, right? तो वो changes को हम senescence में लेते हैं, जैसे graying of hairs, right? Loosening of muscle tone, right? Shedding of teeth, all these things we take as senescence, and we'll explain it through some theories also. We'll understand in 11th the relevance of menarche. Menarche means onset of menstrual cycle in women, right? What are the various factors influencing it? Menopause, that is the stopping of menstrual cycle. Fertility, fecundity, right? And how fertility pattern differs from one society to other, that we'll try to understand in 11th unit, right? In 12th, we understand the same, the application of anthropology in sports, right? In industries. See, the computer keyboard that you use, it fits for the people with thinner fingers, and it fits for the people with thicker fingers, right? With the people of large hands and the small hands. Why? So there must be some application of anthropology. The measurement of your hands, that is known as anthropometry, measurement of body parts, and that is used in industries. And that branch that I was just naming, it is ergonomics, right? The office cabins are designed, the aircraft cockpits are designed using that principle, right? That knowledge. The tanks are designed, helmets are designed in that way. Okay, so that will use the kind of bat one must use to play effectively. That also is there under this application of physical anthropology. So these are some portions of physical anthropology that I have just enlisted for your understanding, to have a glimpse that what you will be studying in this physical anthropology. Now we are coming to evolution. In evolution you have these units, right? This unit 1.4, right? 1.4 you have to study. In that you will find that what are the various cultural and biological factors which influences human evolution, right? You will understand various theories which tries to explain human evolution. You might have heard of Darwin, right? And before Darwin there was Lamarck, and before that there were many religious explanations and other explanations. They try to teach us, they try to explain evolution and its process, right? But it was Darwin who tried to put it in much effective way. And after Darwin there was a theory, synthetic theory, that explains it in much better detail, right? Giving its causes, what are the various factors which are responsible for human evolution. So that we will study human evolution. Then there are many laws that tries to explain human evolution that we will study, right? There are some names you might see, that Dollo's rule, Cope's rule, Gauss rule and all. So Dollo's rule in simple words says that evolution, right, is irreversible. Suppose आज हम humans बन गए, we have lost our tail, right? We are losing our third molar slowly and steadily. So we will not get it back, right? We will not get a tail again. This law try to say. There are exceptions to it, yes. Cope's rule say that in course of evolution, the size, body size is increasing. Are we increasing in the body size or not? That is a question for you. Gauss rule, again it try to explain that the two species occupying the same niche, the one which is better adapted will survive and the other will extinct, this law says. So in this way there are many laws that we will understand later. And after that in 1.5 you have primatology. Here we will try to understand primates, both mainly living primates, that such as gorilla, orangutan, chimpanzee and all, right? Their behavior we will try to understand here. And that is a very interesting part, because there was a question this year, Jane Goodall's contribution to anthropology. She was a famous primatologist. See, there are some behavioral traits of primates. We also are primates, right? Such as chimpanzees and gorillas and all these, even monkeys. And from understanding them, we can gain a better insight in our behavior. So there is a branch of science which is known as ethology, which looks into the animal behavior, right? So that is used in primatology, and we try to understand our social behavior, our biological evolution also through the study of primatology, right? So not only biological evolution we understand, but social behavior also, because they also fight, they also care for each other, they also mourn on the loss of some member of the family or the near and dear one. All these things tells us a lot about our behavior. So that is there in primatology. And after that in 1.6, we have paleoanthropology or fossil study, right? We have paleoanthropology in 1.6, where we will study Australopithecus and various features of it, their distribution, right? What is their status, taxonomic status, Homo erectus, similarly Neanderthal, right? Rhodesian man and Homo sapiens. All these things we will study here, right? And after that, this paper 2, 1.2, here we have Narmada man and all. We will study that. Okay. So physical anthropology, evolution and paleoanthropology, if you study it together, it will make better sense because one is related to the other and the other is related to the other, right? So this is my suggestion to you, that you must study these together. And just after you finish this paleoanthropology, you must shift to the archaeology, right? Just after that, you must shift to archaeology. Archaeology basically is in both, in paper 1 as well as in paper 2. So my fifth section that I am suggesting you is archaeology. Right? Or you can say cultural evolution. You can say it is cultural evolution or archaeology. In that we have units from paper 1, 1.8, Paleolithic, Mesolithic, Neolithic and all. And you have units from paper 2. In paper 2 you have 1.1 and 1.3, right? So that we will study after that. So you know that Paleolithic is the earliest lithic or the stone age, after that Mesolithic, Neolithic and Chalcolithic. So why I was telling you that why you must study both of these together, or you can say just after paleoanthropology you must study this cultural evolution or archaeological anthropology. Why? Because you know that in lower Paleolithic period, Homo erectus or Homo habilis and Australopithecus was there, right? In middle Paleolithic there was Neanderthal. In upper Paleolithic there was modern man, and in Mesolithic naturally we are modern man, Neolithic we are modern man. So if you have that understanding, that evolutionary understanding of fossils, so you can make better sense out of these extinct cultures, right? So that is why I was suggesting that you must study fifth section that I have divided, that I have devised just after the fourth section, that after the paleoanthropology you should study archaeology, and archaeology is in both paper 1 and paper 2. Okay. I will explain these things in detail, but because of the shortage of time of this session, I cannot elaborate on the details, right? Naturally, we will discuss in the class, but I hope that thing, cultural evolution, that is already there in your history also, right? We study there in, Chalcolithic cultures, Harappa and all these things also there. Okay. So that you can easily understand, that is why I am skipping a little bit over there. Then the sixth section that I was suggesting. The sixth section is basically paper 2, right? Paper 2, and that is Indian society and Indian culture. In this section of Indian society, we have units from paper 2. In paper 2 we have unit 2, 3, 4 and 5, right? These 4 units are there, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Okay, and just with this, let me enlist the last and the final section also, so that it becomes easy for you. And then I will elaborate a little bit on that, right? So the seventh and the last portion is the tribal anthropology, or the study of tribes, Indian tribes, in which we have 6, 7, 8, and 9. These 4 units. So let me come to these 4 units slowly. Okay, so this Indian society, unit 2. In that we have demography of India, right? In demography of India, the other things, the population and the factors which influence Indian population, that you have already studied in your GS or you are going to study in GS. What is different here is that you have to study the Indian races, right? The classification given by some anthropologists of Indian races, that how we people in India differ from one another. You see that people in Northeast differ from that of South Indians, and South Indians differs significantly from North Indians. The people of Andaman and Nicobar Island, they differ from the mainland populations, but they match with some populations also, right? So how these peoples are different, right? So we will have their ethnic classification or racial classification. Also, you know that language, varies from region to region, from area to area, right? So various languages you might have heard, that Aryan languages, Dravidian languages, right? Indo-Tibetan languages. These language classifications, right, we will understand. And that is very superficial. We are not going in much detail, either in the ethnic classification or the linguistic classification. Then after that, in unit 3, there are subsections, and in that we study the structure of traditional Indian social system, right? Traditional Indian social system, you might have heard of ashrama system, varna, right? There are 4 ashramas, brahmacharya, grihasth, vanaprastha, and sannyas. So what is the relevance of these ashrams today, and what was the relevance in past? Whether that relevance is loosening or not, that we try to understand. Next we have purusharth, right? What is purusharth? So purusharth are basically 4 goals that every Hindu is born with, right? Karma, theory, जो करेगा वो भुगतेगा, है ना? Karma, rin and rebirth. So what is rina? Everyone is born with some debt, right? That you have to repay in your lifetime by earning some wealth, and that wealth should be earned in accordance to dharma. That is that rina and rebirth that we will understand. That is very interesting of knowing the Indian traditional social system. Then we have caste system in India. What is caste? What are its characteristics? Right? How caste and varna differ? That we'll understand. What are the various theories that tries to explain the origin of caste and varna? Right? What are dominant castes? You know that in some areas like Reddys, Yadavas, Patels, these are some caste groups, right? And they are dominant, although they are under OBCs in many states. Yadavas are OBCs, even Reddys are OBCs, or basically the OBCs are dominant castes. Okay, so what is dominant caste? Which have the dominance of the area, which are the protectors of the value system, right? Which are having more say in the politics or the jobs in administration, or which own more land. So these are the dominant castes. We'll try to understand it. Then we'll try to understand whether caste system is very rigid, it is completely compartmentalized, or there are avenues or of mobility, that one caste can achieve the status of higher caste, or they can Sanskritize or not. They can have upward and downward mobility or not. That we will try to understand. And if at all, then what are the mechanisms for it? What are the processes that takes place? That we'll understand. Then finally, we'll understand the future of caste system. Whether caste is strengthening or it is diluting, that we'll try to understand. We'll try to understand various opinions of the greats like Dr. Ambedkar, Mahatma Gandhi, what they say about the caste. Then we have that impact of, after that, sacred complex that we have already covered in last, right? And in 3.4, we have already taken outside with the earlier sections. And then the fourth one is emergence and growth of Indian anthropology. When did India do it? Who are the many scholars, whether they are foreign scholars or Indian scholars, what was their contribution to Indian anthropology? That we will try to understand here in fourth, right? Then fifth is village, Indian village, right? What is village, right? What is the structure and characteristics of village? Whether village can be called as a social system or not, that we will understand. See, basically, through village, we can know the actual reality of India, because we say that India lives in its 6 lakh plus villages. So that is where the significance of village study is there. If we deeply analyze, if we can holistically see what is there in the villages, what kind of social system is there, what kind of economic system is there, what kind of political system is there, all these things, what kind of land relations are there in the village, then it is very easy for us to give better suggestions for the policies, right? So that is the significance of village studies. We'll cover in detail how villages are impacted by the processes of industrialization and globalization. You know that nowadays, even in villages, you will find that Coca-Cola and all these chips and all, they have reached deep within. The children are eating Cerelac and all. Nowadays, everybody, almost in every second household, have that razor and all to shave, right? So everything is basically how various, then their technology, the agricultural technology and other technologies are undergoing change. The threshers, tractors, they are being used in the villages, so that we will understand the impact of globalization on Indian villages. Then the value system also, right? Whether it is the love marriages, undoubtedly that is because of the globalization, media, and that may be other regions. Then 5.2, we will see that minorities in our constitution, we see that there are two types of minorities, linguistic and religious minorities. So their social, economic and political status we will try to analyze in that section. See, the status of minorities, we must understand the status of minorities. Why? Basically, if there is the feeling of communalism or any other feeling of segregation within the society, then it is because of some kind of feeling of deprivation, right? So that is why their status, many committees have been set up. Sachar committee, right? Ranganath Mishra committee and all these committees, they try to assess the status of minorities, right? Religious minorities, and we'll try to understand it in much detail. The 5.3 is basically, that also we will cover with the earlier portion. I did not write it there, right? So in that also there are the processes of change. The indigenous processes, matlab, that are there within the culture, and the processes from outside, right? That means westernization, that means modernization, right? Or the media, how media is bringing change. And if it brings change, westernization, globalization, modernization, or media and other such agents are bringing change, then they are bringing change in which dimensions? Whether in social, economic, political, or they are affecting the ecology also. So that we will try to assess here, right? We will try to understand the process of Sanskritization. That is a very important term. Many of you might have not heard it, and we'll explain that later. Then finally, we have the tribal India, right? This 6, 7, 8 and 9. In that we will try to see the biological variations, their linguistic variations. We will try to understand their socio-economic conditions. We will try to understand their problems, what kind of problems they face. Maybe they are not facing problems in the past, when they live in harmony with the forest. But you all know, because of the intrusion of outsiders in their own homeland, that is forests, they are facing many types of problems because of our developmental projects, because of our roads, railways, dams, industries, urban settings. All these processes are bringing some change and they are causing problems for them. The problems are of multiple fold: health problems, social problems, economic deprivation, right? Political detachment, all these problems they are facing. So that we'll try to understand, right? Then at the same time we will see in 7.1 the exploitation and deprivation of scheduled caste and scheduled tribes and OBCs, and what are the constitutional safeguards or other legal safeguards. You all know that we have some constitutional articles, Article 224 and other 244 and other articles. So these articles, they basically have some protections, some constitutional protections for tribes, some constitutional protections are there for scheduled caste, some constitutional protections are there for OBCs, right? And whether these protections, these safeguards, constitutional safeguards, are sufficient or not. If they are sufficient, then it's all right. But no, we find that there are problems, right? So what more is needed? What suggestions you have to improve the situation of scheduled tribes or scheduled caste or other weaker sections? Then we will try to understand that the next section is 7.2 that we have already covered earlier. Then 7.3 is the concept of ethnicity, right? Ethnicity and conflicts, political developments, unrest, regionalism, demand of autonomy, and all these factors we'll try to understand. See, that Naga movement is a regional movement, secessionist movement. They are demanding the separate greater Nagalim, right? Greater Nagalim. So that demand, what is the basis of it? And one more term, pseudo-tribalism. You see that many caste groups, they are seeking tribal status. And one such example is Gujar community of Rajasthan, which is demanding ST status now, right? So that demand is pseudo-tribalism, right? Then social change among the tribes during colonial and post-colonial India. So how that social change is taking place? What are the processes of change? That we will try to understand. And then finally 8.2 and 9th unit. So in 8.2 we will try to understand the tribe and nation state. What is a tribe and what is nation state? See, nation state, the feeling of nation, it's a we feeling, right? And tribe also have a we feeling. So have these two concepts, tribe and nation state, have any relationship? That we'll try to understand. And how various nation states are formed, that also we'll try to understand there in that topic, right? So then finally 9th unit, in that there is history of tribal administration, tribal policies, plans and programs, that we'll try to understand, that whether these plans, these safeguards are sufficient or not. If they are not sufficient, then what is needed? What anthropology can contribute and what the state or the government should do, that is here, right? We'll try to understand it from the historical perspective to the modern perspective, right? Then the concept of PVTGs, particularly vulnerable tribal groups, who are basically living with pre-agricultural technology. Right? Agriculture is a developed technology and they are living, in pre-agricultural world. They don't practice agriculture, although in practice, in real ground reality, that is not so nowadays. But still, there is a lot of things that you can say. Finally, you will see that what is the role of anthropology in tribal and rural development. What role anthropology can play in tribal and rural development? See, tribal and rural development. Any development require the holistic understanding of the problems. So anthropology see tribes from all dimensions, rural areas from all dimensions. So naturally there can be a better solution, better bottom-up solution, bottom-up planning, outcome-oriented approach if we apply the anthropological knowledge. So here there is direct application. Finally, that how anthropology can be useful to understand regionalism, communalism and all. That is the final topic that I have to explain. That is the 9.3, right? So basically anthropology looks at things very deeply, very holistically. It interconnects one dot with the other. So it can give us a better and more holistic picture. That is why anthropology can play a very useful role in understanding these problems. And if we can understand regionalism, what is the basis of Naga demand anthropologically, naturally we can find a lasting solution. And that is where anthropology can play a role in these things, right? Nowadays there is a movement, there was a movement last year, I think, Pathalgadi movement in Jharkhand, right? You might have read in newspapers. So what is the basis of it? If we see it anthropologically, we can find a solution, and these movements may not turn in violent rebellions. What is the problem of Naxalism? Why this problem is so much violent, right? That it is a biggest international security threat according to our former Prime Minister, right, Dr. Manmohan Singh. Why it was the biggest internal security threat? And how we can use the knowledge of anthropology in understanding it. That is what we will do in the final chapter. Okay, so this is the 7 sections that I just gave you. Through these 7 sections, you can understand anthropology in a much integrated manner, right? In an organic way. Because understanding from the first basics will help you to understand the second, the socio-cultural anthropology. And understanding of socio-cultural anthropology will basically widen your horizons, widen your acceptability for the theories. And from theories you can move on to physical anthropology or the biological anthropology. From there you can move to that biological evolution and paleoanthropology, and finally archaeological anthropology. Then you can focus on these 2 sections, Indian society and tribes. See, if you focus, right, if you put your efforts in the right direction, you can study anthropology very well in 3 to 3.5 months, right? And anthropology can very well revised in 1 week period that is available in between your mains examination. If you have made proper synoptic notes for your quick revision, right? In this way, the way I have explained the syllabus, you will get the notes also, and we will give you the synopsis of each and everything here, right? Let me tell you in the end that it is your hard work and a proper guidance that can help you to score 320 plus in anthropology. And it is not difficult to get 320 plus in anthropology if you are putting your efforts in right direction. 320 plus is a very good score, 60 to 65%. If you can score in your optional, you will get a decent space, you can get a better rank, right? And anthropology, the way I have explained in just 2 hours, right, it is this much only. We have to fill in detail, but that is it. We have to fill in detail in these headings, but I have given you a complete glimpse, a bird's eye view of the entire syllabus of anthropology. And if you have listened, carefully this entire discussion that we were having, so you have traveled through the world of anthropology. And you got a very decent understanding that what lies inside. And there is nothing hidden in anthropology. Everything is described in the syllabus, right? The only thing that you require is a proper hard work, right? A guided hard work. So Before we end, let me tell you that tomorrow we will have a class again at the same time, 6 o'clock. In that we will discuss how you can improve your marks, right, and what should be your strategy, answer writing strategy and all. So tomorrow we'll meet at the same time. Till then, thank you, take care and stay safe. All the very best.